Al Leiter, Major League Baseball Network analyst, former star pitcher, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. Asked this question of Bob Costas yesterday, Al. I said you can start your team with anybody. Have your fantasy draft. Who would you start your team with?
You're asking me now?
Yeah. Well, you want me to tell you who Bob said?
Yeah, let's start with that.
Okay. John Smoltz started this. He said he would take Clayton Kershaw. And then Bob said he would probably co-sign with that, or Trout. Who would you take?
I would go with Clayton Kershaw. If we watch these games, Dan, it comes down to pitching. And I know during the course of the year, there's a lot of really good hitters out there that lunch on mediocre pitching. But we'll watch who plays this out and who wins. It'll be based on the superior starting pitching. It's hard to look away from Clayton Kershaw right now. You think he's going to get $300 million from the Dodgers?
Well, he has a better chance than Cano does.
I agree with that.
Well, Al, there's no way I would sign up Cano for more than 5 years.
I think that seems to be the sentiment, but why do you pick 5? 35 years old is the start of the decline?
Well, I just don't know, the fountain of youth that we saw a lot of these guys using, where you sort of saw that fountain of youth at 35 into your 40s. I think it'll be different. And Cano, at his age, I don't know. If you sign somebody up for 10 years, they're going to take a couple of years off, I think, right?
You hope they don't. But I don't know. Maybe it's human nature. You're having a bad year. You got a bad ankle, bad hip, bad shoulder. You kind of write it off. I agree. You know, who was I talking? I was talking to Jack Morris. I was doing a game up in Toronto, and I remember when Jack signed I think it was a 4-year deal. And it was a big deal. And we're not going back to the 60s or 70s when I'm talking about this. It wasn't too long ago that an established star player would get a 3-year deal. And if you were special, you'd get 4. And I forget who the first guy was to get a 5-year deal. And, I'm talking late 80s, early 90s, or through the mid-90s. Is that a long time ago?
Remember Maddox got one from the Braves when he left the Cubs. Didn't he get a 5-year deal with the Braves?
That was a 5-year deal. You're right. He may have been one of the first that got a 5-year deal. I know Dave Stewart came over. He got like a 3-year. I think Jack got a 4-year. But, the Paul Molitors and Dave Winfields, and, you go right on down the line, a 3-4-year deal was security. Now I can't imagine. You're right, a 10-year deal. Ooh.
No, it's crazy. But if you're I'm looking at Kershaw last night. I don't know what that pitch looks like. With that windup, it's hard to time it, I think. There's a little bit of deception there, but he didn't even have his best stuff last night, Al.
Well, you know what? Especially after what looked like he settled down a bit. But when you get early runs, and I can't say enough for it, when we watch these games, which offense can push a couple picket fences early on to allow a guy like forget about Kershaw, but even a good pitcher. Well, tonight would be a good example, I think, with Garrett Cole. I love his stuff. I know why the Pirates took him first overall. But to have a little bit of a buffer, just so the 2-0, 2-1, 3-1 pitch, you get a fastball, you see the catcher set up away, and it's not gulp, oops, if I make a mistake, it's a home run, it's a tie ball game, or maybe a possible loss.
Yeah.
And, once the Dodgers went up, was it 4-zip after 3, I think, it just felt like this game was over, even though, you got to still play another 6 more innings. He didn't have the same zip, but when I watched Clayton, a couple years ago, and I won't bore you with all the details, but, he was a dominant fastball curveball guy. And then all of a sudden he kind of abandoned his curveball and has now become more fastball slider. So I think he's caught between, that medium speed. But, God, I love when he's on with all his 3 pitches. I don't know too many pitchers better.
But I was bringing this up, too, that when you get to the postseason, this is why you spend the money on pitchers.
Yep.
Regular season, it's nice, but when I get there and I have to win a game, and you have those guys there, the value of that, it's like a great goaltender in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They make you so much better, and you have that, we've seen that before with Verlander. I went back to Randy Johnson, Kurt Schilling with the Diamondbacks. You always had that guy where you went, damn, we're down 1-0, or it's a game 5 or a game 7, and you got that guy. The value cannot be undersold here for these guys. But how many of them do you think are true, legitimate hammers when you say that guy's going to win that game? How many do we have in the game now?
Well, I'd like to think that a couple guys in Detroit, and I know that Verlander hasn't been the same Verlander this year. But I look at Scherzer, Verlander, and even Anibal Sanchez, who led the league in ERA. Wow, and it's not just guys that get it done. I mean, you had mentioned, Greg Maddux. I think he was the best pitcher I ever saw live. That's not the best stuff. I thought Pedro was up there with stuff and that correlated with results.
But
I thought Roger Clemens was the same.
But Maddux didn't win. He didn't win big games.
He didn't win big games in postseason because he didn't have strikeout stuff. You're right. But I think overall, watching what he was able to do with the baseball, I marveled at because I couldn't do it, and he did it with less stuff. But I hear what you're saying. If you look at the clubs that go far into the playoffs and eventually World Series, you need swing and miss guys that have an idea. They know how to pitch, and those are the stats. I mean, we're gonna, you see Kershaw now. They're going to back it up with Greinke.
Yeah.
Those are swing and miss stuff guys. Even with Wainwright, still, back, his velocity's back, dominant. You just see him on the mound. He's got the look of, I'm in command. And, there's a swing and miss stuff guy.
We got the Tigers going against Oakland, and that's a swing and miss club. They either, homer or they strike out here. And, now they're facing the Tigers rotation. What do you expect to happen there? You know what?
Teams like the A's scare me in the sense that they have this chip on their shoulder that nobody thinks we're worthy. And it's not that people who watch the game and you watch it closely don't think that they're worthy, because I think, depth-wise, I think what Billy Beane has done, Bartolo Colon to me is amazing. When I watch him, Dan, I know how he's doing it, but here's a guy that throws a boatload of strikes, doesn't walk anybody, and throws a fastball. Primarily fastball with a little changeup.
But do you think he's clean, though, Al?
I don't know, Dan.
At age 40, come on.
No, I'm going to say he's clean. I'm not going to buy that. I believe
he's gotten popped before, though, Al. I don't trust any of these guys who get
well,
popped.
That's a shame. And for you, as a big a figure as you are in sports, for us to have the strictest, most stringent testing in all the professional sports, for you to say that, and I'm not saying you're the only one that said it, because that does sometimes the head you see what he's done at 40 years old, and people want to question it, but we have strong testing.
But Al, he forced me to question it. I didn't question it before. I didn't question any of these guys. They forced us to question them and have doubt. I don't like it. I don't like watching and going, I don't know. I'd rather watch it and marvel, but I can't do that. I can't be that naive now with this.
Look, I'm not a player anymore. I don't know how often the players get tested. I know it's much more stringent now than ever. But the reality is he's having a borderline career year. Once upon a time when he won the Cy Young, and at 40 years old, he's good. He's good. But I'm not gonna go down the line.
But here's the thing: I talked to a DEA guy, Drug Enforcement Agency, and he was telling me, we were talking stories, and he said, hey, I don't know if you care about this story, and he started telling me about minor league baseball players who have a drink, and he said it cost $80. And you drink it before you take the test, you'll pass any test. These are minor leaguers, and he's saying that. I'm going, it bums me out, but he was saying, look, I deal with stuff people trying to beat a test all the time. And he said, I got a friend, and his daughter dates a baseball player in the minor leagues. And they said all of these kids are taking, it's a drink they take, and you can pass a test. So, I don't know.
Well, I would like to think that guys, value their career and would not want to get caught. And I think the only way that this stuff will stop is that the penalty will be more severe, so that it's.
But can you do that though, Al? When you look at, what went on with Braun in Milwaukee. I mean, it's nice to have. Okay, all I got to do is get up in front of the media and say I'm sorry, and I still get $100 million. I mean, that's why there's no deterrent. It's risk reward.
Well, I think the risk is if it's 50 days and you could be Melky Cabrera and still sign for whatever he got, and you get banged for 50. But now let's make it 1 year. So you get caught, it's a full year, and it's not just the embarrassment of the full year and 1 year's pay. How about guys having to come back from a year being off? That's not easy, especially if you get up there in age. I don't know. I'd like to think that maybe I'm naive. I'd like to think that there's more people who have scruples and care. And, I don't know.
If you're Joe Girardi, And I said you could have let's say the pay is the same. Cubs, Yankees.
If I'm Joe Girardi.
Yeah.
I think if I'm Joe Girardi, I'm going to consult with my wife and my kids and find out what the tenor and pulse of that scenario is. I think what I just had read, and I haven't spoken to Joe about it, is that, I guess his ties are a little less in Chicago because his family's growing here.
Well, his dad died, and his kids are in school here. That's a tough thing to do. You know that when.
Yeah.
You can leave your kids in a city because you don't want to uproot them, even if you do go to another team.
I don't know how much more choice can you get than the New York Yankees. I mean, I know he's already won a World Championship, and he played as a Yankee, and I know that I guess his beloved Cubs, and he went to Northwestern. He's a Chicago kid. I think how much that plays in, but I can't imagine the Cubs overly paying him more than what the Yankees are able to pay. So it's not going to be a monetary thing, and you're going from the heralded franchise of the New York Yankees. I don't know. My gut says that he's happy here. Kim is happy, his wife, and Dante's in U12 baseball and doing tournaments, and his girls are great. I can't imagine wanting to disrupt that apple cart.
He's Al Leiter. Major League Baseball Network will exclusively air Game 2, League Division Series, Cardinals and the Pirates later today at 1 Eastern. You can find your local channel listings at findmlbnetwork.com. Great talking to you again. Thank you, Al.
Thanks, DP.
All right, bud. That's Al Leiter, Major League Baseball Network analyst.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.